All right. Well, welcome to podcast number 3.
Number 3.
And we've improved for our viewing group. We've hidden the cords. I guess somebody said no cords.
Looks much better.
All right. Well, hey, my name is Jason Watson, Watson CPA Group, alongside Amanda Rowles.
Hello.
And Joseph Bassett.
Hello.
And in our previous get-togethers, we discussed some entity formation stuff. We also discussed the benefits of an S corporation. And we're going to just we'll recap.
As well as keep.
Yeah, we'll probably keep it too. The S Corp benefits. So, Joseph, do you want to just kind of run through what happens with a garden variety LLC and the tax effects?
Right.
And then how that changes, how the color of the money changes.
Right. Yeah.
From red to green.
Right. So yeah, a garden variety LLC, it's going to be subject to taxation on 2 levels. It's going to be subject to the income tax and the self-employment tax, and the S Corp kind of helps reduce how much you're paying in that self-employment tax. Because if you got $100,000 on a Schedule C, for example, if you got $100,000 on a Schedule C, you have to pay income tax and self-employment tax on that total $100,000. Whereas in an S Corp, we can kind of divvy it up, and we'll say your reasonable compensation is $40,000, and then you'd only have to pay that self-employment tax on the $40,000, but you'd still be liable for the income tax on the whole $100,000.
Right. So, and just to recap that as well, what we're doing with that $100,000 LLC taxes and S corporation is we're chopping up, like you said, the money,
right?
And using your example of $40,000 salary, $60,000 in distributions, both the 40 and 60 are going to be taxed at your income tax rate, but just the 40,000 is going to be subjected to Social Security and Medicare taxes, which is the same as saying self-employment taxes. Right. So that's the benefit of an S corporation. It might not always make sense for you, as we've discussed in podcast 2,
right?
I guess. We discussed some of the problems with an S corporation if you're in certain areas like New Hampshire, Tennessee, New York City.
Right.
Maybe you have other wages that exceed the Social Security wage base. So an S corporation is not for everyone. That's not what we're saying. But if it should be for you, those are the benefits. And if it is for you, then we kind of have to run through what the S Corp election looks like. So Amanda, just take us through a normal S Corp election. Today, we're also going to discuss the late S Corp election, the I don't feel tardy S Corp election.
Right. So on a timely S Corp election is what it's called. You form your entity, which is either an LLC or a C Corp, since an S Corp does not exist on its own. And then you have 75 days from the formation of that or from the beginning of the year that you're electing to go ahead and fill out Form 2553 and submit it to the IRS.
Do you call your cat 2553?
I do not.
Is that your cat's name?
No, it's Thomas O'Malley.
No, 2553 exactly. And just real quick before we get too far into this, for our viewers today, it's Friday and it's casual day.
It is casual.
Well,
True.
I shouldn't say that. Boss lady Tina says we don't call it casual
Denim
day.
day.
We call it denim day. So we're all rocking the denim. Amanda's rocking the WC Girl shirt.
Sure am.
Yeah, WCG URL is what we use for our short links on our website. So anyway, a little inside humor there. So that is the S Corp election process, Form 2553. You send that out. All the shareholders sign it.
Correct.
We send it in within 75 days of the inception of the entity or the calendar year, or I should say fiscal year, but anyway, typically most folks are running January 1 for that. So that is all cool in the gang when we're timely. So what is a common scenario? Today is September 7th. 7th? Yeah, I lose track.
All day.
Yeah, even in Canada. It's September 27th today. And talk to me about how somebody would come in today and say, I need an S Corp election. My entity's existed for 10 years. I've had it. I've been using it. And now I talk to Joseph. Joseph says, hey, this S Corporation makes sense for you. And now we have to do what's called a late S Corp election. So take me through that, or take our listeners and our viewers through the late S Corp election, assuming September 27th.
Right. So like you said, if somebody today was like, hey, now it makes sense, maybe it didn't make sense in the past, or maybe they just didn't think about it, then they could come in today. We would still do Form 2553 with a couple of small adjustments. One of those would be that we would stamp it Rev Proc 2013-30, which is the IRS's, I don't want to say free pass, but pass to go ahead and elect late for an S Corp. We would also attach what's called a sorry.
Well, I was just going to add to that. It's really a revenue procedure.
It is.
So
Yeah.
Rev Proc is short. That's like geek speak, if you will, for revenue procedure, right? So the IRS Revenue Service says, hey, we have this procedure for this late S Corp election. They number them. They begin with the year. And then they just numerically assign them a number. So 2013 came out in 2013.
Right.
There was others before then that were kind of confusing, and the IRS consolidated them into a singular IRS Rev Proc 2013-30. So sorry about that. I just wanted
That's
to
okay.
kind of expand on that.
Yep. So it's the same form with, again, that stamped at the top so that they're clear that this is a late S Corp election. And then we also attach a reasonable cause statement. And that just basically explains why you didn't elect this in a timely fashion, what elements were going on, kind of a, hey, forgive me.
Right. So we're going to do the typical S Corp election form 2553. We stamp it, filed pursuant to IRS Rev Proc 2013-30, and then you attach this reasonable cause letter. Does that come from us?
It does not. That comes from the shareholder, whichever person's going to be the main signatory on the form.
Okay. And you help them, though, with the drafting
I
of
do.
that, right? Okay. What are some of the reasonable causes for a late S election?
So some of the things would be that they thought that they were an S Corp and just didn't realize they hadn't filed the form, that they've been acting as an S Corp the whole time and just hadn't gotten to the form, that they may have gotten bad advice from another accountant, a lawyer, Google, something, and they didn't realize that
You're
this was...
seeing that Google gives bad advice?
Well, it can, believe it or not. Just because it's on the internet does not mean it's true.
Well, it's just on our website.
Unless it's on our website, of course. That's the only exception.
No, so that's good. So this reasonable cause letter, basically, hey, I thought I was an S Corp, or I relied on someone else's advice, or I've been acting like an S Corp. That's probably the one that's most common.
Right.
People have been kind of thinking, hey, I should be doing this, and I'm acting like it, but for some reason, I couldn't get around to it until now, and now I'm late, and it's like, oh, crummy deal for me, but we can still fix that.
Right.
So how far can we go, like, back in the past?
So 2 years.
Technically.
Yes, technically, as long as you have not filed prior year tax returns, unless there's some kind of extenuating circumstances, 3 years and 75 days.
Okay. So we can go back. So right now we're looking at 2019, right? We could go back technically, let's say to 2017, January 1, and do an S Corp election for January 1, 2017 going forward. The problem with that is if you've already filed a tax return,
Right.
what are some of the issues with that, Joseph?
So, typically you'd have to amend that tax return, and typically the IRS doesn't like to see you amend the tax return just to be saving, thousands of dollars on self-employment
Right.
tax.
So you have to have a reasonable cause
right
to file this late S Corp election.
Right.
And you have to then, and that kind of dovetails into the reasonable cause for amending your tax return. And to say, I want to save a bunch of self-employment tax, probably is not one of them.
Not really.
So we have done that here at the Watson CPA Group. We've had some people who have filed tax returns. And the one I'm thinking of right now is where this gentleman was in a hospital and his CPA, and he was unable to, I guess, act on his own behalf. And his CPA, right, wrong, or indifferent, his CPA filed his tax returns.
Right.
And really what this guy wanted to do was be an S Corp that year. And so we felt like that was a reasonable reason to go back and amend his 1040 to take off that Schedule C LLC to then create a S Corp tax return for the same year and then kind of bundle all that back up. But yeah, just to say I want to save some money, yeah, that's a great reason to do it. And that is why you do it.
Right.
You just can't go back and undo it when you've already filed a return. I mean, just think about that, right? You've already signed this tax return saying, yes, I represent, I warranty that this information is to the best of my knowledge. Oh, wait a minute. I got new knowledge.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Whoops. Yeah. Psych. So, all right. So that's the late S Corp election. Great. So that's easy, right? September 26th, we send this off to the IRS. I would say easily by Christmas time, we're going to get that S Corp election approval.
Right.
Right.
The shareholder's going to get it.
Right. Correct. Yes. Thank you. The shareholder is, or the business owner, whoever is the point of contact with the IRS, is going to get that letter. And then we're doing, payroll. We're doing all the normal stuff.
Correct.
Whiz bang out the door. That's the easy late S Corp election.
It is.
So, all right. Let's talk about the two other late S Corp election scenarios that, I guess, have more hurdles, bumps in the road, right?
A little more challenging.
Yeah, we don't want to say, problems. We don't want to say disasters. Those are bad things, right? So bumps, challenges. So let's say we're February 1. Okay. And somebody comes to us. It's during tax season. And they've been acting like an S Corp. They thought they wanted to do this. They've been doing all the right things. But they just didn't get their S Corp election done on time. Life gets in the way, right? Life on life's terms. So Joseph, talk to me about how February 1 S Corp election for the prior year. So it's February 1, let's say 2020, and this individual wants to go back to January 1 of 2019. Take me through some of the hurdles, the bumps in the road that are going to be created with this scenario.
So the first hurdle is the S Corp return is going to be due March 15th. And when we file that 2553 for the S election, it usually takes about 8 to 10 weeks to get acceptance. And we can't file a return without acceptance. So we'll have to file an extension, right? But the only problem with that is we haven't gotten approval either. So the extension is probably going to get rejected. But the extension kind of gives us a time and date stamp to show the IRS, hey, we tried. We didn't have time to do it before the deadline. So we'll get that extension right. April 15th, probably come and go. Hopefully it'll go. And then afterwards, once we get that acceptance from the IRS saying, hey, you're good to go, your S Corp election is accepted, then, we'll submit that 1120S for the S Corp election.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start to unpack what you said there. Everything you said there was absolutely correct, spot on. Let's just kind of, again, to break this down. It's February 1. We have, let's just say 10 weeks before we can let's say 12 weeks before we can file, because it makes sense. So,
yes.
From a math perspective. So we're looking at May 1st as being the earliest time that we can file this S Corp tax return.
Right.
Now, can we file the 1040 without the S Corp?
No.
So now we have to extend your individual tax return, your 1040. And why is that? Because the K1 that's generated from the S Corp has to go on the 1040.
Right.
So now we're looking at two extensions, okay? And the problem with an extension on your individual tax return is that it doesn't extend your tax due. So what do we do there? We are going to prepare both the 1120S, create that K1, okay? And then we're going to create a 1040, bring that K1 in, bring in all the other stuff that this taxpayer has, compute the tax due, right? So we got both returns done. We're just kind of waiting, right, for the IRS to kind of come back with their stamp. So we're going to have the client then send off the payment by April 15th, and then we kind of hold our breath and wait for May 1st to roll around. Hey, I got this great letter, and okay, now we can file both returns. And when Joseph, when you said extension, we do attempt to file electronically. We expect a rejection.
Right.
We also mail in, and the extension form for that is the 7004. We do mail that in as well.
Yes.
And that it probably gets thrown in the garbage too.
What's this?
This is an extension for an entity that doesn't have the proper tax classification. Into the garbage it goes. Who knows? But at least we have a recorded time and date stamp, like you said, from our tax software saying we tried. And we also have the same thing from the Postal Service, because we always are going to send that certified mail.
Yes.
And we're going to say, hey, we tried as well. So that is a big deal, which we'll get to in a second, right? So, all right, May 1st comes around, Joseph, and everything happens according to Hoyle, right? According to plan, we get the 2553 back from the IRS, or the shareholder gets it back from the IRS. They give it to us. Everyone's excited, and we push the big submit tax return button. Tell me now what happens.
So unfortunately, you're probably going to get some IRS correspondence.
It's a near certainty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably a little more than unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you will also most likely, certainly, get that around 5:30 p.m. on a Friday, when we're not here.
Yeah.
So don't freak out when you get that.
And what will it say?
It'll say we charge a penalty to your S corporation.
Right. So
Terrible
let's
news.
break that down.
Yeah.
Right? $200, right? For 2019, if you're watching this 10 years later,
Yes.
it might be more.
Only $200.
Might be $204. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So $200 per shareholder per month, right? So May 1st, we file, you're going to instantly be hit with $200, right? If you have multiple shareholders, then it's 200 times shareholders. When are you going to get this letter? You said on a Friday, but you probably won't get it instantly. It'll probably be like July,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So you're going to get this letter from the IRS, 5:30 on a Friday, right? It's going to ruin your weekend,
Sure
of course.
is.
It's going to have a big number on there. You owe a lot of money. But we can fix that. So talk to me about the process with that. Do you want to do that one?
Sure.
Amanda?
So the first thing is that we're going to ask that you upload that letter to us.
All pages.
All pages.
Not just pages 1, 3, and 5.
I know.
Actually,
all
2,
of
4,
them.
and 6.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to write a letter to the IRS explaining that we did go ahead and try to file this extension. Here's our proof. We're going to submit both the electronic proof and the paper USPS proof saying we did go ahead and file this extension. It wasn't approved by that time. Please abate this.
Right. And there's some references to some law in there as
There
well,
is.
right, in that letter. What's your success rate, Amanda?
So my success rate on filing late S Corp elections is 100%.
Okay. And the abatement?
I don't handle that part.
You don't handle that part?
I know it's a really high percentage. I haven't heard a lot of.
It's 100% for
Okay,
us as
good.
well. Yeah, we've gotten all that removed for any late S Corp election. Now, of course, full disclaimer, your mileage might vary, right? Of course, for those listening or viewing, but getting this late S Corp election done is easy. Doing the returns and all that, similar, easy. Abating the penalty is not really easy, but it's something that we can work through, and
Right.
we're very, very successful at. So this is all good, right? I mean, bumps and hurdles, but nothing that we can't overcome, and nothing that costs us a whole bunch of time or money or resources, right, from a client's perspective. So that's cool. So just to kind of recap a little bit, we have the September or November or December late S Corp election, which will probably be done in time to file the returns on time.
Right.
We have the one that's like in the middle of tax season, the oh crud, I forgot to do my S election,
Yes.
February 1 freak out, right? Now let's say somebody comes to us May 1st for the first time. And they're like, I've extended my 1040, but I want to be an S Corp, or I want to be taxed as an S Corporation for the previous year. I've always thought I was an S Corp. I've done all the things, I feel like I have a reasonable cause for this late S Corp election, but clearly we are beyond the tax filing deadlines of
Right.
both the S Corp and the individual tax return. So do you want to talk about that, Amanda, and how
Sure.
that works?
So the process of actually doing the S Corp election is the same. We'll use that Rev Proc
Okay.
on the 2553. We'll attach a reasonable cause statement. All of that. We'll still prep the returns. We'll still get ready to go. But at this point, we'll mail them in.
We do that, and we also can file them electronically.
Yes.
Yes, so
Exciting
we can
news.
do both. What the revenue procedure says is if you're past the filing deadline, then file the S election with the reasonable cause letter with the tax return.
Right.
And we can certainly mail that in. We can also, with our tax software, we can attach the
That's
PDF. So we prepare the return, and the tax software is going to create an electronic record, right, that the IRS can receive. And it's a different format, of course, it's all this code and stuff. But then we can attach the PDF right behind it. And that typically results in very high success as well to eliminate the penalty and all that stuff, or not to eliminate, but to be successful in removing or abating the penalty. So again, 3 scenarios: super early but late,
Yes.
late but not really late, and then super late and super late.
Super late.
Yeah. And again, we did that all the time. I would say we probably had 20, maybe 25 late S Corp elections that we did after tax season,
Yes.
like May 1, June, July type stuff. And then it's been very successful for
Sometimes
us. So-
what happens is we're preparing a 1040, and as the staff accountants are reviewing the Schedule C with your small business, they'll look at it and say, hey, you really should have been an S Corp. So we're always looking for those things to help save taxpayers money.
Yep. The one concern there is that, in that reasonable cause argument, you were saying that you always thought you were an S
Right.
Corp and all those things. So, sometimes that happens. Sometimes people just are confused. They thought they were an S Corp. Like, hey, my lawyer set this all up. He says
Right.
I'm good to go, or she says I'm good to go. And we're like, but we don't see that,
We don't see
How
the
do
form.
yeah. So let's say somebody thinks they filed the S Corp election. How do you handle that then, Amanda?
So I would ask for their acceptance letter.
Oh, yeah, right.
I know.
Yeah.
Or I would ask for the
And what-
2553.
And how many of those have you received?
Sometimes clients say they didn't have it, their lawyer had it, their partner had it, it got lost when they moved. Then what we'll do is we'll ask for their EIN and the information on their business, and we'll create a power of attorney, and we'll
Okay.
just call the IRS to verify.
Okay, so a power of attorney sounds kind of scary. What does that mean? What can I? Because some people don't want to lose control. They want
absolutely.
They don't want. They're kind of freaked out about privacy and all that. How does that power of attorney? What does that allow you to do, and what does that now not allow you to do?
Well, we're very specific, on our forms. We itemize exactly what we're allowed to talk about and what we're not allowed to talk about. This doesn't give us signatory rights or anything like that. This is fact finding.
Right. Fact finding is a great way of saying it. We're not signing. We're not making decisions on your behalf. The IRS unfortunately can't talk to us
Right.
without this 2848, this power of attorney form. They can't even say yes, it is in the system. No, it's not in the system. They just say can't talk to you. So we have you. So we fill that out. We have you sign it. We send it off to the IRS. You give them a call. Hopefully on a Tuesday or Wednesday when
Right,
they're too
when
busy.
they're not super busy.
And the IRS says, oh yeah, we have it right here, blah blah blah, and then you get the effective date from them and all that stuff, and away we go. However, if someone thinks they were an S corporation and they're not, then it's a big deal, because then we have to go down the other path of now filing a late S Corp election.
But it fits right in with our reasonable cause statement. They thought they were.
Yep, exactly. I totally agree. So, all right, so that's cool. Talk to us about when others do late S Corp elections and some of the accidental follies that they do, and the resulting of those, and the results of those follies.
So I do have about, I would say, between 20 and 30 clients that come to me a year.
Some of those are other CPAs and tax professionals.
It's true, and say they need help, or they tried to do it themselves and it didn't work out. Oftentimes the biggest thing is they forget to stamp it with the Rev Proc.
Yep.
And then the IRS can only go back the 75 days. And
so what happens there? So you want to go back to, let's say, 2019, and you don't identify that with the filed pursuant to IRS Rev Proc 2013-30. Good chances they're going to say effective date Jan 1, 2020, right?
yes.
Okay. So what happens when somebody, for lack of a better way of saying it, screws up their late S Corp election? How do you fix that?
There's a couple of different ways. So the first thing that we're going
Do
to
you drive to Ogden or Cincinnati and camp outside
should.
the IRS? That'd be
See,
fun.
that I have not tried.
A little tent like you're waiting for Bruce Springsteen
Yes,
tickets to go on sale.
Exactly.
Depends on what time of the year
First
it
one
is.
So we try a couple different things. The first thing is, again, we're going to ask you to sign this power of attorney, not so we can sign anything on your behalf, but so we can talk on your behalf. And we're going to try and just get a nice agent who's in a good mood and say, hey, we meant this date. A lot of times, if the Rev Proc wasn't there, their hands are tied. So then we'll submit another 2553 with the correct date, with the Rev Proc, with the reasonable cause statement, and oftentimes that solves it right there.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll get an additional letter, and again, we'll just have to communicate with
Keep
the IRS
pushing.
a little more.
And you're pretty successful in that.
I'm
right?
very successful.
Yeah.
Successful.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't say the word, but I can do it.
Yeah. So 100% success rate on fixing
Correct.
bad S Corp elections.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens a lot. And it's just the way it is. And
Mm-hmm.
it's silly that the IRS has one rule and 50 exceptions.
Yes.
And then when you don't do the exception the exact way that they want, even though the spirit of what is on their desk does not fit the letter of the law, they reject it. And I get it, because they don't want to think what you're thinking. They're like, look, if you're thinking the way I'm thinking, then do it the way it's supposed to be done. Follow the rules. Otherwise, I might make maybe somebody really does want to have that late S really be for next year, and they filed that wrong too. So anyway, it's very common, I think, or it's very reasonable for the IRS to go, look, I'm not sure what you're trying to do here, so we're just going to reject it. You know, either do it the way it's supposed to be done or don't do it, you know. So anyway, that's great. So that's good. So if you, for those listening and for those watching, you know, if you have done your own late S Corp election, or if your hired tax professional has done it as well and it didn't go the way it was supposed to, don't freak out. I mean, you know, go ahead and freak out, because again, 5:30 on a Friday, you know, is when it comes back in. But we can get that resolved typically as well. So anyway, just to recap, S Corp election, if it makes sense for you, the timely filing is 75 days after the inception of the entity or the beginning of the year. And if you don't have that, then we're looking at 3 late S Corp scenarios. One being, you know, it's late, but not super late. We still have time to file it, get it back, prep the returns, and do all the things that we have to do, and no one knows anything differently. Then we have the one where it's in the middle of tax season. It's going to be late, but we file it in a different way. And then the one that's after the filing deadline, where we have to file the 2553 plus the reasonable cause letter plus the tax return, all bundled together. So anything else that you guys wanted to add as we wrap things up here a little bit? Nope. Really, Joseph?
Are we going to talk about salary on another video?
We are going to talk about salary on another video.
Ooh, foreshadowing.
Another podcast. Yes, foreshadowing. I believe our next one, this is podcast 3. So podcast 4, a little front sell, as they say, right? We're looking at operating your S Corp. So now we've discussed what entity makes the most sense for you. So we're kind of taking you through this, you know, series of events.
A journey.
Yeah, a journey. We've identified what entity is best for you. We've talked about, does S Corp election make sense for you, given your incomes, given your other income sources, given your location, all those things. We've discussed the whoopsie, I'm tardy, late S Corp election scenario, and all that is behind us. That's all one and done kind of stuff. Now we got to look at how to operate your S Corp, and we'll talk about that in the next meeting here, next podcast. So for those listening, thank you. For those viewing, thank you as well. A little wave. My name is Jason Watson with the Watson CPA Group, alongside Amanda Rowles and Joseph Bassett. And we thank you for listening and watching. Visit us on the web, WCGInc.com, Watson CPA Group. You can also download our book, and our podcasts should be available on iTunes and Spotify and other providers. And this video is also available on YouTube for those who are listening. So thank you for your time today, and we look forward to helping you out. Thank you.